construction worker who works with silica dust is having a conversation with his colleague, explaining how he hasn't been feeling quite like himself recently.
I've had this irritating cough for 3 weeks now, as well as night sweats. I don't feel like eating, and my clothes are starting to feel a little big.
Sounds like you might have TB. And because you work with silica dust, it makes you more vulnerable. You'll need to go see a doctor urgently and make sure you report this because it could be related to your work.
You're probably right. I will go see a doctor. But what do you mean I should report this? To whom?
So you'll need to inform your supervisor. It's better if you do it in writing, but you can also tell them in person. You need to make sure your supervisor knows you may have a work-related disease before the end of your shift and that you'll be seeing a doctor.
All right, thank you. And what happens if I am diagnosed with a work-related TB?
So if it's work-related, it may be helpful to inform and disclose to your employer. Depending on how sick you are, you may be compensated for a work-related illness. Applying for a compensation, though, is like a claim and requires many forms to be filled out and submitted to the compensation fund. The compensation fund is part of the government and falls under the Department of Employment and Labor. So this compensation claim is not assessed by people in your company. Your employer will need to complete a WCL-1 form called Employer's Report of Occupational Disease and report your occupational disease to the Compensation Commissioner within 14 days of being informed of your diagnosis. Your doctor will have to complete a first medical report for occupational disease WCL-22 within 14 days of the diagnosis, stating how serious the condition is and how long you are likely to be off work. This medical report and all the medical test results must be sent to the Compensation Commissioner and forms part of registering the claim.
And what will happen if the TB takes long to heal?
So generally speaking, TB requires about 6 months of treatment, so your doctor will need to complete monthly progress reports, Form WCL-26. These forms must be submitted to the Compensation Commissioner. Your doctor will need to complete a final medical report once you recover or your condition has stabilized. They will also inform your employer when you are ready to go back to work. Your employer will also fill out another form when you eventually return to work. You should make sure you keep copies of all the forms we have spoken about so far. Depending on the claim and only once the Compensation Commissioner has received all the necessary forms and medical evidence of the diagnosis, will they make a decision on whether to grant or decline compensation.
Wow, this is a lot of information. How do you know all this?
Good question, Derek. So remember that last year when so many workers got sick? Well, I was one of the people who got diagnosed with COVID-19. I got it from a fellow colleague and had to follow a similar process.
Thank you so much for your help. And I hope you won't mind if I call you to assist me through this entire process.
Yeah, sure. No problem. I also happen to be a health and safety representative anyway.